Welcome to Mindful Moments. Nourish your mind on the go. This video uses AI narration to present our original book analysis.
Oh, cool.
Today we're diving deep into Jack London's The Sea Wolf.
Okay, yeah, I've heard of this one.
If you're curious about classic literature or the psychology of power, you're in for a wild ride.
Awesome.
This book throws you right into the heart of survival, brutality, and the depths of the human condition, all set against the backdrop of the unforgiving Pacific.
Sounds intense.
It is. It really is.
I'm ready for it.
Okay, perfect.
So, where do we start with this one?
Well, it's a story that grabs you right from the first page.
Oh, okay.
We're talking a ferry sinking in dense fog, passengers thrown into a desperate fight for survival.
Wow, right off the bat.
Yeah.
Talk about setting the scene.
And the ferry captain, talk about chilling.
Oh, no.
He's eerily accepting of his fate amidst the chaos. It's almost more disturbing than the panic all around him.
Okay, I see. Like almost too calm.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
It definitely sets a tone, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And that sense of impending doom only intensifies when our main character, Humphrey Van Weyden, he's a literary critic, very much the bookish type, gets pulled from the water by the Ghost, a seal hunting schooner.
Okay, so he's like totally out of his element then.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Fish out of water doesn't even begin to describe it.
Yeah, right.
And that, my friend, is where we meet the infamous Captain Wolf Larsen.
Okay.
Now, this guy is a force of nature.
Uh-oh.
Physically imposing, intellectually sharp as a tack, but absolutely ruthless in his Darwinian view of the world.
Okay, so like survival of the fittest kind of thing.
Exactly. You see that play out immediately in how he runs the Ghost.
Yeah.
It's all about survival of the fittest, and there's no room for weakness. Van Weyden, thrown into this brutal environment, becomes a cabin boy facing the scorn of the crew and the ever-present threat of violence.
Oh, this poor guy.
I know, right?
So he's like going from analyzing literature to like scrubbing decks.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yikes.
Remember that incident with his swollen knee?
I haven't read this one yet.
Oh, okay, right. Well, he's practically crippled, and the crew, especially the cook Mugridge, shows him zero mercy.
Oof, that's rough.
It's a stark awakening to the reality of life aboard the Ghost.
Yeah, no kidding. So it's like all about physical hardship for him at this point.
That's definitely a huge part of it, but there's another layer too.
Okay, what's that?
What's fascinating is the constant clash between Van Weyden's idealism and Larsen's brutal pragmatism.
Oh, interesting. Like a battle of philosophies.
Exactly. They have these electric debates about everything from the justification of power to the meaning of life itself.
Wow, so even in this like brutal setting, there's these deep conversations happening.
Yeah, London really weaves it all in.
That's cool.
Larsen, steeped in his might is right philosophy, sees life as a chaotic struggle.
But he's not exactly a happy-go-lucky kind of guy.
Not quite. He calls it the ferment of life, this constant churning with no inherent purpose. It's bleak, to say the least.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And Van Weyden, even as he's witnessing this brutality firsthand, clings to his belief in human dignity. He can't reconcile the cruelty he sees with his own understanding of the world.
Oh, I see. Like a real internal struggle.
Exactly. This tension between them, between their opposing views of humanity, is what drives the story.
Gotcha. Okay, so we've got this conflict brewing, we've got physical hardship, and it sounds like things are only going to get more intense.
You're right about that. The violence on board the Ghost escalates. And it's not just directed at Van Weyden. The brutal beating of Johnson, the callous indifference towards Harrison's near-fatal fall from the mast.
Oh my gosh.
It's all part of this harsh world where survival is the only law.
It sounds pretty grim.
And then into this world walks Maud Brewster.
Okay.
A poet.
Oh, wow.
The picture of refinement and sensitivity.
So the complete opposite of everything we've heard so far.
Absolutely. She's completely at odds with the Ghost's brutal environment.
Yeah, I can see that. How does she end up there?
Well, that's a bit of a story in itself. But let's just say fate had a hand in it.
Okay, mysterious. I like it.
But here's the interesting part.
Okay.
There's this unsettling tension, this strange attraction between her and Wolf Larsen.
Oh, wow. That's unexpected.
It throws another layer of complexity into London's exploration of human nature.
Yeah. I mean, opposites attract sometimes, right?
Right. But in this case, it's more than just attraction. It's this almost primal force that brings them together.
Okay, so like a force of nature, but on a personal level.
Yeah, something like that. And her arrival doesn't quell the violence. In fact, it seems to intensify it.
Oh, no. Really?
Remember when Larsen throws the cook, Mugridge overboard to be used as shark bait?
You mentioned that before.
Huh?
Yeah, I'm starting to get a picture of this Larsen guy, and it's not a pretty one.
He's a complex character, that's for sure.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Maud is horrified, of course. But Larsen's chilling indifference in that moment truly reveals the depths of his cruelty. It's a turning point because it sets the stage for the crew's rebellion. They've reached their breaking point.
Wow, so it's like her presence, even though she's sort of caught in the middle of it all, starts to shift the balance of power a little.
You're right. It's almost like she represents something, some kind of hope or humanity that even Larsen can't entirely extinguish.
That's powerful. And what happens with the rebellion? I'm assuming they don't just sit back and take it anymore.
You're right about that. They don't. And in the midst of the mutiny, something truly unexpected happens.
Oh, what's that?
Leach, one of the cabin boys, who's been targeted by Larsen's cruelty, actually steps in to save his life.
Wow, really? He saves the guy who's been tormenting him.
It's a twist that highlights the complex power dynamics and blurred lines between hatred and survival that London explores in this story.
So it's like, even in this like kill or be killed environment, there's still this sense of, I don't know, maybe obligation or something.
Yeah, it really makes you think about the nature of humanity, doesn't it? Even in the most extreme circumstances.
Yeah, for sure. So what happens next? I mean, they can't just keep going on like this, can they?
Amidst the chaos, Van Weyden and Maud Brewster see their chance and make a daring escape in the small boat.
Finally, some hope for these two. I was wondering when they'd catch a break.
They've been through a lot, that's for sure.
But escaping Larsen is just the beginning, right? I mean, they're still out in the middle of the ocean.
You're absolutely right. Their journey is harrowing, a true test of their resilience. They battle storms, starvation, thirst.
Oh, man, it sounds like one thing after another.
It's a testament to the human will to survive,
Yeah,
even when faced with seemingly insurmountable odds.
I bet. And where do they end up? Back to civilization?
Not quite. They eventually land on a desolate island in the Bering Sea.
A desolate island.
Yeah. Their fight for survival takes on a whole new dimension there, pushing them to their absolute limits.
Wow, so out of the frying pan, into the fire.
You could say that. But it's on this island that we really see these characters tested, forced to rely on each other in ways they never imagined.
I can only imagine. So they're stranded, facing the elements with no help in sight.
Yeah, pretty much. And just when things seem bleakest, the ghost drifts back into their lives.
What? The ghost?
It appears deserted, except for one solitary fencer aboard. Wolf Larsen, now blind and paralyzed, the sole survivor of his own shipwreck. What a twist of fate.
Whoa! I did not see that coming. How does that even happen?
Well, we'll get into that in a minute. But think about it. These three characters, thrown together again by fate after everything they've been through.
Talk about a reunion you don't want to have.
Right. It's almost like the sea itself has brought them back together, this unlikely trio bound by fate and circumstance. But what are they to do with this ghost from their past? This man who has caused them so much pain?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, on the one hand, you want to say, leave him. He deserves whatever happens to him. But on the other hand, can you really just abandon someone, even someone like Larsen, in that condition?
It's a moral dilemma with no easy answers. Can they simply abandon the man who tormented them? Or does their shared humanity compel them to care for him in his weakened state?
You're right, there's no easy answer there. I can't wait to hear what happens next. I can't imagine being in their shoes. Like, what do you even do in that situation?
It's a real test of character. The decision they make reveals a lot about their evolving character.
Right.
They choose compassion, even for someone like Larsen. And that decision leads to one of the most incredible feats in the book. They actually manage to remask the ghost using only their wits and scavenged materials.
Curious.
Talk about resilience and human ingenuity. To rebuild a ship in those harsh conditions with limited resources, that's almost unbelievable.
That's pretty amazing. I guess when you're facing those kinds of circumstances, you really have to pull out all the stops.
It's a powerful metaphor for their own ability to overcome seemingly insurmountable obstacles. And it's in those moments, as they work side by side toward a common goal, that their relationship deepens.
Okay, so you're talking about Van Weyden and Maud, right?
Exactly. Maud had already proven herself to be far from a delicate flower.
Yeah, she's been through a lot.
But here we see her resourcefulness in full bloom. She even comments on how rough they both look, their hands calloused, their faces weathered a far cry from the refined individuals they once were.
I guess that's what survival does to you. It strips away all the superficial stuff and leaves you with the raw essentials.
It's interesting, isn't it? The transformation they undergo is both physical and emotional. They've been stripped down to their essence by the harsh realities of survival. And in that shared struggle, something new emerges.
What do you mean?
Love, perhaps. It's subtle, but London hints at a growing affection between them, forged in the crucible of shared hardship and purpose.
Oh, wow, okay. That's interesting. So even amidst all this, like, brutality and survival, there's room for love to blossom.
It's a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, wouldn't you say?
I guess so. It's not what I would have expected from this story so far, but it kind of makes sense.
It's a love that flourishes in the most unlikely of circumstances, under the shadow of Wolf Larsen's presence. Their captor, and now their responsibility.
Yeah, can't forget about him. He's still there, right? Blind and paralyzed, but still a presence.
That shadow looms large, doesn't it? It creates this incredible tension leading up to their final confrontation with Larsen. Van Weyden wrestles with his desire for justice, his need to see this man punished for his cruelty.
Yeah, I mean, after everything Larsen put them through, you'd think there'd be some anger, some resentment.
But he's also bound by a moral code that prevents him from taking a life.
So it's like an internal battle between revenge and his own sense of right and wrong.
This internal conflict within Van Weyden is at the heart of the story's climax. It forces us to consider our own capacity for forgiveness, the boundaries of our own moral compass.
What would we do in his shoes? It's a question worth asking, for sure.
And just as that tension reaches a boiling point, nature intervenes. It's not Van Weyden who delivers the final blow. It's a storm, a force beyond their control that claims Wolf Larsen's life.
Wow. Really? So he doesn't get his revenge after all?
It's an ending that leaves us with more questions than answers. Did Larsen find any measure of peace or regret in his final moments? Did he experience any shift in his understanding of the world, a softening of that hard Darwinian shell?
That's a good question. I mean, we've seen glimpses of something else beneath the surface, haven't we? Like with Maud.
And what becomes of Van Weyden and Maud? Does their love endure? Do they return to civilization forever changed by their encounter with the sea wolf and the vast, unforgiving ocean? These are the questions that linger long after the book is closed.
Yeah, it makes you think, doesn't it?
It's interesting how those questions circle back to this fundamental human dilemma.
Yeah.
What does it mean to be alive? Especially when confronted with the kind of brutal reality that Wolf Larsen represents.
Exactly. Like, what's the point of it all when you're surrounded by so much darkness and suffering?
That's the very question London wrestles with throughout the novel.
Yeah.
On one hand, you have Larsen's Darwinian perspective, where life is simply a struggle for survival, devoid of inherent purpose or morality.
Right, just this brutal fight for existence.
And then there's Van Weyden, who initially represents a more humanistic view.
Okay.
He believes in compassion and our ability to transcend even the harshest circumstances.
So, like, even in the face of all that brutality, he still holds on to this belief in something more.
Right. But as he's thrust into this world of violence and survival aboard the Ghost, his beliefs begin to crumble.
Yeah, I mean, you can't just ignore the reality around you forever, right?
He's forced to confront the darkness not just around him, but within himself.
Ooh, that's deep.
It's like he's forced to ask, is there truly a higher purpose? Or is it all just a brutal dance of survival, as Larsen insists?
I feel like that's a question a lot of us grapple with at some point in our lives.
Definitely. And then Maud Brewster arrives.
Yeah, the poet.
She embodies this idealized sense of humanity, beauty, art, compassion, and yet she too adapts.
Interesting.
She learns to hunt, to face danger.
So she's not just this delicate flower. She's got some grit too.
Exactly. She even develops this strange understanding, a connection with Larsen that further complicates things.
Yeah, that relationship was always a bit of a mystery to me.
It makes you wonder if London is suggesting that even in the most brutal environments, the human spirit can find ways to endure, to connect.
Maybe like even in the darkest places, there's still a spark of hope or something.
It's fascinating how her presence challenges Larsen's worldview.
Oh, yeah. In what way?
He's drawn to her, intrigued by her, yet he can't control her the way he controls his crew.
Okay, yeah, that's definitely a challenge to his whole might makes right philosophy.
It suggests even someone like Larsen, for all his brutality, has a flicker of something else within him.
Huh, like a sliver of humanity, maybe?
Perhaps London doesn't offer easy answers, though.
Yeah.
He leaves us grappling with these questions.
Right.
How do we make sense of suffering? How do we find meaning in a world that often feels indifferent, even hostile?
Big questions for sure.
And what about love and compassion? Do they have any place in this dog-eat-dog world? The Sea Wolves confronts us with these questions head on.
Yeah, it really makes you think about your own values and beliefs.
It's brutal, but it's also a story that makes us think, that makes us feel, that forces us to examine our own beliefs.
Absolutely. It's not just entertainment. It's like a philosophical journey.
If you're looking for a book that'll challenge you, a book that'll stay with you long after you finish it, we urge you to dive into The Seawolf.
I second that.
You can find a link to purchase the book in the description below.
And hey, if you're looking for more deep dives into literature, make sure to subscribe to Mindful Moments.
We're here to help you nourish your mind wherever you are.